Hey guys, it's Sire again, and today I'm going to review Trainwreck, the latest Amy Schumer movie. Let me just start this review off with a confession. I'm a huge romantic. If I like two characters together and they get together, there may as well not have been a rest of the movie or show because I'm already satisfied. I'm done. Peace out. As long as those two are together, I'm good. I'll see you guys later. But in all seriousness, because I'm such a huge romantic comedies are just they're one of my favorite types of movies. That doesn't mean I think they're the best kind of movies, but I tend to enjoy them a lot. Trainwreck, starring Amy Schumer and Bill Hader, is a romantic comedy. Basically, this means if you've seen a romantic comedy before, it's the exact same movie. What I really mean when I say it's the exact same movie is that it follows the exact same formula that every other romantic comedy movie, basically ever, follows. And if you've seen a romantic comedy movie before, you could probably guess what happens throughout the entire movie with almost 100% detail. This movie was filled to the brim with cliches, but before you go raging at me about how great it was a movie and I'm wrong about everything, when I say cliche, I don't mean it's a bad thing. See, cliches are cliches because they work. And sometimes when something is cliche, it does it poorly and it winds up terrible. But Trainwreck did the cliches very well. I really liked the movie. It wasn't hilarious. There weren't really that many huge laughs, but I was chuckling the entire movie. LeBron James was great. I was surprised. Usually athletes who try movies, they usually, not always, wind up terrible. But I loved him. He was so funny throughout the entire movie. Cleveland. Always remember Cleveland. The acting was pretty good in this movie. Amy Schumer did okay. Bill Hader, I think he was a little bit better than her. And the other side characters did okay too. But like, I don't expect great acting. I don't go into a comedy movie expecting great acting. If you're going into a comedy movie starring two comedians and expecting the most phenomenal acting you've ever seen in your life, then I don't know. You're doing something wrong. Those aren't the movies you should be aiming for. They're just not. If you really want acting like that, go watch something like Birdman or Nightcrawler. But a romantic comedy is not the place you should be at. But yeah, despite that, the acting was decent. Not perfect, but decent. This is the point of the review where I'm just gonna say spoiler warning. Even though I'm not really sure it counts, since like I said before, if you've seen a romantic comedy, you probably know what's gonna happen. But yeah, spoiler warning. I better not see any complaints. Okay? Spoiler warning. Are you getting this? Spoiler warning. So in this movie, Amy Schumer plays a woman who's a little bit. Uh, she she's kind of no. I want to Google up some words. Give me a second. I couldn't really find any words on Google, but basically, Amy Schumer plays a very sexual woman. She's not a slut because she doesn't sleep with anyone indiscriminately. She just sleeps with people she finds attractive, and there's nothing wrong with that. Guys do it all the time. We don't call them sluts. It's fine. It's fine to sleep with someone you find attractive, even if you don't want to have a relationship with them. Nothing wrong with that. Am I not sexist yet? In all seriousness, though, there's nothing wrong with what she's doing. It's just because she doesn't believe in monogamy because her father drove it into her head when she was a child that monogamy was an unrealistic thing, and because of that, she doesn't believe that having a loving relationship with a person romantically is possible. So she just prefers to have fun. There's nothing wrong with that. Hey guys, does that characteristic sound familiar to you? A character who sleeps around a lot? Doesn't that sound familiar? Doesn't that seem like a familiar trope? It's because it's a very common thing in romantic comedies to have a character like that. One who doesn't believe in love, so they could just change in the end. I have a reason for bringing this up, besides the cliche thing, but I'll get to that later. And eventually Amy's character meets Bill Hader's character later on in the movie, who's a sweet, kind guy, works as a sports doctor, works with all the famous athletes. He's even best friends with LeBron James, as you probably know from the trailer. But what you really want to know about his character for now, for my review's sake, is is that he has been in a lot of relationships. And he even reveals in the movie at one point that he's only ever slept with 3 women in his entire life, and he's basically the complete opposite of Amy's character, who sleeps around frequently with guys she finds attractive. But basically, the key note here is that that's also a common trope in romantic comedies. Have a character who's a lot more shut in, not as sexually free as the love interest is, and that leads me to my next point. And what I feel really makes this movie just really interesting is that it's kind of, even though I said it's cliche, it's also very original in that it's probably one of the first movies I've ever seen where the character who sleeps around a lot is the female in the romance, and the shut-in character who hasn't had a lot of sex is the male. I'm not going to say it's never happened before. It has happened before, but it's not that common because typically in what society has taught us, the male is the one who sleeps with everything ever in the history of life. But here, it's the opposite. And another thing that I really liked about it is that in a lot of those movies where the male is the more promiscuous one, the guy, even though you know that deep down he's unhappy, you don't really see that until one really bad thing happens and it just shatters his whole image. But in this movie, Amy's constantly telling us how happy she is, how much she has, how much she loves her life as it is. But throughout the entire introduction we see of her, you can see that there's a lot of things that she's clearly upset about, but she's just too afraid to admit it because of her deep-seated psychological issues. And I just think that's really cool. It's not something you usually see in these kinds of romantic comedies. And even though in general the plot is still pretty much the same as most romantic comedies, I really like those two little original parts of it. It's just not something you see that commonly, or at least not something I've seen commonly. I'm not going to claim to have seen every movie ever, but I just thought that was cool. It was interesting. And there's one other part that happens that I also thought was pretty cool. I mean, it's not very big, and it winds up leading to nothing, but it's not so common in romantic comedies. I feel it's worth mentioning. Usually, during the big fight slash temporary breakup part of a romantic comedy, the couple are just like, fine, we're done for good, until 15 minutes later, of course, where one of them makes a huge romantic display, or they run towards each other at the same time. But that's getting off topic. But in this movie, when they had their fight, and Amy had the typical, oh, I knew monogamy was too good to be true, so we're done. It was never gonna happen anyway. We're done, and she just walks away. But even if it only happened a little, Bill Hader's character was like, no, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. I'm not going to give up like that. And they actually spent the entire night trying to work it out. And eventually they did wind up breaking up anyway until 15 minutes later when Amy made her huge display. But I really thought that was cool. Like, it wasn't because I know you guys know what I'm talking about. Usually it's just like, okay, we're done, and nobody really tries to do anything until they're like, oh wait, I love that person. Why would I give up? Because you're stupid. But I really thought that was cool. Well, I don't really have anything else to say about this movie. In summary, I really liked it. It wasn't hilariously funny, but it was pretty funny in that I chuckled the entire movie, even though I never busted out laughing. The acting was decent. It was pretty cliche, as romantic comedies tend to be, which isn't a bad thing, but it also had a lot of original twists that made it pretty cool and interesting. Uh, and yeah, that's it. Remember, if you guys like the video, remember to like it first of all, and please subscribe to my channel if you want to see more. Uh, Peace out.